Hi guys, it's Mark here again. Today I'm going to give you what you guys have all been asking for. I have my BMW E60 M5 and all of its history here on paper. I have almost every bill with the exception of possibly a couple of oil changes that I might have misplaced. But I have every bill including the original MSRP, the original purchase paperwork for this car. I have here, and I'm going to share that with you today and follow along because a lot of you guys have been asking what is the price and value of an M5 and what are your running costs? What can I expect to pay for an E60 M5 for the long term? This is the true long-term ownership cost. This is a 2006 model year of the E60 M5. Here we are in 2017. We are 11 years later. I would call that a long-term running cost, if anything else. If that's not long-term running costs, I'm not sure what is. So everybody, follow along. We're going to go through this step by step. I'm going to explain to you what each bill was for, and then I am going to give you a big tally at the very end, and we're going to talk about that briefly, and we'll talk about next steps and how I feel about this, and you guys can share your thoughts and feelings about the whole situation, and we'll go from there. So anyway, let's get started, everybody. Let's start from ground zero. So the first bill is the original purchase price of the car, and it is the total balance due $134,373.79. So if that's not an expensive car, I'm not sure what it really is. So that's the first bill. $134,000 and change. The next bill, we have the original owner decided to take some of the extras. So he paid for some wheel and tire protection package for this car when it was new, when it was brand new. This individual paid $581.94. Not a real cheap price, but again, when you're paying that kind of money for a new car, you want to make sure you're doing all the right things to protect your investment. I have another bill here now. This one is for a typical oil change. This one here has oil and filter service. It also has a flush brake fluid and basically scan the onboard computers and reset. That bill comes out to $408.80. The next one is a little bit more. Now, I'll just start out by saying I don't drive this car in the wintertime, and the owner before me didn't really drive it a whole lot, but they did prepare the car for potential use for wintertime. And up here in Alberta where we live, often we have long winters, and if you don't use the car through part of the winter, the car sits really for 7 or 8 months of the year, because if we're waiting for summer conditions, we have a very short season. So sometimes people like to drive these in the winter, and therefore they invested in a set of winter tires and rims for this car. And that total came out to $2,410.80. Next, obviously I would say the previous owner, again not myself, this was the previous person who owned this car, needed an extra accessory, so they added something on after the fact. And because it's typically an M5 or 5 Series are often executive-based vehicles, this one looked like no exception, and obviously they needed a place to accommodate a suit. So they purchased a BMW coat hanger, which actually coincidentally hooks up nicely behind the driver's seat. It's actually a nice fit. It fits in there like a glove. You barely even notice it. And it's there to hang your suits or your jackets or whatever. And they paid $64.50. Next, we move into another service. So this is an oil and filter service. Again, a little further down the road, we have another one. So the oil and filter kit and oil service. This one totaled $296.12. The next bill is a full interior and exterior clean and polish. So this person obviously took great pride in this car, and they wanted to make sure that they gave it the treatment. So they spent a little extra money to give it a full detail, interior, exterior, give it a real good once over. And that bill came to $224.70. which would explain, of course, why the car is still in such great shape. The next bill has to do with, it looks like they did a windshield in the car. At one point, they did a windshield replacement, and they did some other general inspection and whatnot. And that bill came out to a tally of $569.30. Moving right along, there was just a purchase of, it looks like 2 quarts of oil, the specialty oil, because this does take the 1060. It is a specific high performance oil. We typically can't find it on the shelf at your local auto shop, so you had to buy it from the dealer. And this oil, actually, for 2 quarts of it, costs $35.70 for 2 quarts. Obviously, that's about $18 a quart. Very expensive synthetic oil. Then we move along. We have another little repair here. So we have a windshield rain light sensor, condensation sensor. There was some kind of a sensor that needed replacement. I'm guessing it was probably the rain sensor. Maybe it's something wasn't working there right. This was done by a glass shop, not the dealer. And this one totaled $927.75 plus GST. That was a pretty substantial bill. So $927.75. Actually, that was probably the windshield with the rain sensor, I would say, looking at that. So far, nothing substantial, pretty much maintenance items. Then we move along and we have another bill here. Oil and filter change as per factory specification. So they did an oil change. What else do we have here? Pretty much that's it. They did a fuel additive and an oil change, a minor service. And this one came out to $297.62. Sorry. Then we move to another bill. The next bill is a little bit larger. So this one looks like there was an oil and filter change. There was fuel system cleaner, and they had done some other stuff. We had air filter. We had the SMG gearbox final drive fluid change. We had the transmission fluid change. And we did the differential, rear end differential gearbox, all of that. All the fluid changes. So engine, diff, transmission fluids, and air filter. And that bill came out to a little bit larger, $700.67. And that was done at the dealer. Then we move into another bill. The next bill was actually done at the dealer. So this one here is check and advise on check engine light. Whoa, where are we at here? Ooh, that's a big one. Let's save that one to the end. So we have the next one here was done at the dealer. And this one is the E60 E63 S85 US programming DME control unit. So there was a reprogram of the control unit. It says as per bulletin, and I wonder if that wasn't a recall of some type. They programmed and encoded as per the bulletin. Checked operation, cleared faults. Everything's good. We did another one, battery cable cover replaced and sealed battery cable cover. And I wonder again, if you followed a previous video, I talked about some of the BMWs burning, and I have to wonder if that wasn't part of that. Now, this wasn't during my ownership, but they had done some kind of, by what I can tell, a recall for some battery cover and cabling and sealing and stuff like that. Then we move along to check reason for parking brake is sticky, does not disengage until brakes are applied after releasing parking brake. So then they checked the operation, they made some adjustments, and the brakes are good. Anyway, so they cleaned the dust boot, the dust and grit from the rear brake, from the parking brake, and it fixed the problem. So moving along, they also did the front air conditioner microfilter and activated charcoal microfilter and condition, did basically a microfilter service. Not a large dollar amount on its own, but the total that all up, that came out to $643.36. And again, remember, I had mentioned in the beginning, there was a couple of oil services that unfortunately, I failed to find the receipts on during my ownership. These are mostly previous owner tags. A couple of mine, I put them somewhere, and unfortunately, I can't share that with you today. I do know, however, I paid approximately that same $300 tag per, and a couple of them, I would say, you might as well count another $500 to $1,000 is what I don't have account for. But beyond that, this last bill is the final bill. So this one here was a big one, and this one I talked about previous. We had an engine light and we had a malfunction. Basically, to summarize, let me just explain here. So they road tested the vehicle to confirm customer complaint, scan and charge vehicle, found fault codes. Throttle actuator faulty is what we found here. Passenger mirror was heating faulty as well. Performed test plan for a throttle actuator, needed replacement, DSC fault. Can be related to TA, wait to diagnose DSC until check engine is fixed. So they did a bunch of work there. They looked at the throttle actuator and the check engine light. So they replaced throttle actuator, cleaned out plenums. They basically gutted the whole intake of the car to test this. They did, it failed the test, and so said stiff linkage movement, check voltage at electromotive throttle controller. And so they said the throttle actuator bank is defective, and they completed customer courtesy wash. So they did the wash, they found that a throttle actuator was faulty, and replaced the passenger interior glass test component, mirror adjustment and heating work properly. Then they did a performed brake fluid flush service because it was due at the time, and performed throttle actuator bank test. They did a final test to make sure everything was working once they got everything pieced back together. So they did a pre-check, and then they pieced everything back, did a final check, and that was that. And now, unfortunately, this is kind of goes to what some of the reports on the internet talk about, and that's one of many potential common failure modes on the E60 M5 is the throttle actuator. And if I can give you a little bit of prelude to what that looks like, it is quite expensive, so be ready for this. And this again is a relatively minor thing. There's a lot of things that can go wrong here. But this car, this total invoice tag, again, for those few things that I talked about, came to a grand total of $3,625.09. So $3,600 to fix a throttle actuator, troubleshoot, brake fluid check, and there was a mirror that wasn't working. Pretty substantial bill, wouldn't you say? So that summarizes that. And just to be fair, I would say I'm going to tack on an extra $1,000 for items missed that I have failed to unfortunately find the invoices for. So when I total up that $1,000, we're going to run the numbers and explain to you what that looks like. Well, so let's tally that up. So, what do we have as a grand total? Well, the grand total for the initial expense, the purchase price of the car, and all expenses included for ownership since 2006 till today are $145,815.46. Now, if we take away the original purchase price of the car at $134,373.78, take that away, what do we have left? The actual expense of owning this car for the last 11 years comes to a grand total of $11,441.68. And I hope that helps everybody. For those that think that it is extremely expensive owning these cars, it can be, and certainly you can run into some lemons, but I would say that's $1,000 per year of ownership costs. In the last 11 years, it has costed us $1,000 and change per year, averaged out for that 11-year course, to own an E60 M5. That's ownership. We're not talking about incorporating depreciation costs in there. That's a whole nother ball of wax. Of course, as we talked about previous, the amount that we've depreciated, because this car, of course, is only worth maybe $30,000 to $40,000 today because of its low mileage. Even at $35,000, that's a $100,000 hit. That's a $10,000 hit per year. So if you want to incorporate that, that's about $11,000 per year of ownership costs. But we won't talk about depreciation. Every car faces that. And again, everybody, I really hope that helped you. I know a lot of people have been asking for a long time, what is the long-term ownership cost of a BMW E60 M5? And I can truly tell you that is a very, very accurate account. That is my personal experience from 11 years of between myself and previous owners of ownership of this BMW M5. And again, I hope you liked. Please be sure to share this video. Share it with everybody. This is going to give you a really good idea if you're shopping for a car like this. It's going to give you a real good perspective of a good baseline where to start. Of course, depreciation isn't going to play a factor here, but the cost of ownership probably will and likely will increase as time goes on. Of course, the car's getting older. But please do share, like, and very importantly, subscribe. Also, don't forget to turn on those notifications so you catch my next video. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. And really, thanks a lot for following me. And we'll talk to you in the next one. Bye-bye.